So welcome to part one for tonight's Nutcracker needle felting project. He's quite a dashing looking Nutcracker. There are actually two here, and they've all been made by Colette. And so, yeah, she's really done us proud with this beautiful Nutcracker. And so I can't wait to see yours. But first of all, I want to just make sure that you've all got the right content of what you actually need to make the whole project. If you're not familiar with my settings here, you can usually see me straight on like you do now. And then there's an overhead camera as well, which I haven't checked. So it might show something weird. No, we're all good. Okay, so this is basically what you get or what you need in your for your Nutcracker project. You have two long cables, they're not cables, wire. These are the 50 centimeter long black stem wires that we have. You have two skeins of DMC cotton, embroidery cotton. You also have some glue and ice, black glue and ice, 6 millimeters, as far as if I remember right. And then really important is that you distinguish between your three white wools. So you have your core wool, which is the biggest portion. Then you've got two smaller portions, which are roughly about the same, but very different in texture. So one is a wool top. So that's a long strand of wool, super fine. And all the fibers are nicely aligned, running in one direction. And then you've got another merino, but this is also an Australian merino, but this one is a wool bat. So the fibers are less aligned. And so these two need to be completely kept separately. The top we're actually using only for the beard and the hair, and that happens at the very, very end. So just to avoid getting confused altogether, you could put this to one side and just forget about it until the very end. Don't put it away so you can't find it, but definitely I would put this out of the equation for tonight, because we are literally only going to work with these colors today. So you need the core, you need your red, your black, and your pink, and that's all we're going to use today. But we're going to put this away. The blue we won't need today either, because that's for the eyes. So I'm going to put that away as well. So I'm starting at the beginning of the instructions, and you need one of these long wires. Now we're starting to make the body first. If you've got our instructions, you will see that on the back of the instructions, we always have really useful templates. And the way, as far as we're getting today, is in part one, is this shape here. So we will get the hat done, the head, the red body, and the black sort of top of the trousers, if you like. That's all we're getting done today. And we're starting out with one of the black wires. So this one here. And if you bend it so that you can find the halfway mark, it's already a little bit bent because that's how they put it in the box. We are going to start wrapping wool around this halfway mark here. And the wool that we're using is about 1/4 of the big pile that you've got here. So basically just portion the wool out roughly so that you can make 4 more 1/4s out of this. That looks about right. If you want to be totally precise, then there are measurements. So you've got 24 grams, you divide that by 4. And so you know that you need 6 grams of wool. So to start, that's 1/4. Okay, so put that last one to one side. I've got my red, flesh, and black here, and this is my 1/4 that I'm using first. Now we're going to, this is our basic core wool, and it can sometimes come in quite bitty bits, and that's absolutely fine. It's only on the inside. It doesn't really matter very much at all. So you want to wrap this wool now around the center of this black wire. Now I've wrapped wool for years and years around wire. I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm holding on to a wispy bit, and then I don't let go of that until the wool grips into the wire, and I keep going and keep going and keep going. However, if that proves too difficult for you, then just use a dab of glue at that bend of the wire. There are lots of things that you can do. You can use a little bit of lanolin just to make it a little bit more non-slip. You can use a little bit of florist tape. or like I say, just plain basic glue, just to stop it from slipping around if you find that hard for the wool to grip into the wire. So we're going to wrap this now around the top, and we're going to use all of that 1/4 portion that we've set aside. If you've got bitty wool, I wouldn't fight it, just go with it and just take the bits as they come and wrap around the center here. Get the wool wrapped around. Nice and flat. You don't want to put a twist on it. Just keep folding the wool over as best as you can. This is a very similar technique to what we use when we build the layers for our wire wreath to make the different seasonal wreaths that we offer in our kit, in our kits. So I've still got a little bit more to use, and when you get to a point, it doesn't have to be after you've used all of the wool. You might already find that you have to keep stabbing into the wool now because it's falling off. Then just use your coarse needle and stab into that part just to tack the wool on and stop it from literally falling off. And the only thing you need to be mindful of is that you have got a wire inside. The wool is quite, what's the word? Spongy, so it's quite voluminous. It wants to make a nice bouncy shape, and that's exactly what we want. So it's not a flat wool. It's a very bouncy full wool, which is exactly what we need. So wrap the last bit on there, the last bit of the quarter, and then give it another stab just so that it stays in place. Remember, there's a wire inside. If your needle hits the wire, it's likely to bend and then snap as well. So we don't want that to happen. Okay. So we just need this to be on the wire so it doesn't fall off, basically. We're going to do a lot more shaping and bulking with the whole shape. Now, I know that there have been suggestions made that we could have put the feet on there straight away. Now, actually, we're not so sure yet whether it's a good idea or not, because you're moving this whole shape around so much. The feet might get into the way. But either way, as you all know, there are so many different ways of how to get to the same result in needle felting. It may well be that this is a much better way if you want to do that. So at the moment, my shape looks like this, and a good comparison is always to already start comparing it to this, because the wire the wire will need to be quite a little bit more closer together so that we don't make a very wide nutcracker. We want him to be nice and trim because he's got a lot of nuts to crack, and he needs to be fit and slim for that. Right. So I think there are some measurements which I'm going to find now. And you want it to be... Right, we're going to start the next bit where we're using the remainder of the core wool, but I'm sure it says it somewhere there. It's about 6 centimeters wide. So when we add the rest of the core wool on, this whole shape, when we wrapped around it, will only be 6 centimeters wide, and that is actually not terribly wide. So if I measure this with my super duper measuring tape, it's only that wide. It is really quite slim, so don't get carried away at the beginning to have this really wide apart. You can bend that wire in even if that top here is broader at the moment. Just make sure that you've got these wires already quite slim. Of course, what you're doing next, you're using all this remainder of the core wool. That's the 3/4 of the core wool from the beginning, and you're going to have to wrap that now around the remaining of the wire and connect it to what will be the head. Right, let's do this together. So I've got my instructions here. I'll just keep them open so I can refer to it. Again, if there are bitty bits, just go with the bits and yeah, just go with it. But what you want to do now is you want to make a sheet that is about 21 centimeters wide So it would be like that, 21 centimeters, and then as long as you can manage. So let's just see, that is probably that's a little bit too wide. And you can literally lay the wool out on top, where if you've got bitty bits, just get your base shape done and then have smaller bits on top of it. So it needs to be 21 centimeters wide, which is this at the moment, and then as long as you can manage. If I should have really done it that way around, but it is fine this way as well. We just want the 21 centimeter width, because what will happen is now we're going to have the width going that way. So what you want to end up with is you will use this now to wrap the 2 parallel wires and use the body template as a guide. So you want to make sure that it still fits that template at the end of it. And where we're going with this, I'm just going to put this a little bit closer to here. So this is my head and my body is finishing here. So this is, we're wrapping everything but the little legs here. That is what we need to now wrap with wool, hence the measurements. Okay, so as we're also felting this down, we can obviously push the wool up a little bit, but you really want to connect the head to it as well. So make sure that you've got that wool overlapping the head. So roll this into a nice little mummified sausage and then get it closed up, and then we can work on it a little bit more. So stab the wool, the wrapped wool, into the bit that you've wrapped at the top, so the 2 of them connect. So get that down first. So you're connecting these parts together. And then you want to work on the rest of the body. And it is literally just a question of felting it all down. So closing that up, nice and neat. And you're going to have to spend a little time now to make that a very firm and neat shape. Remember, we want it to be 6 centimeters wide by the time you've finished. If the wool has slipped down too much, then you're going to have to stab into it from the bottom. These wires, we can open them up again later on. It's fine that they're at the moment so slightly touching. And I'm using a single needle at the moment, and it is actually proving to take a long time. So if you've got any multi-tools, such as the 3-needle felting tool, you might find it easier to do this. Greater chance to hit the wire when you're working with 3 needles. You could also use 2 needles and hold them separately, like this. As the wool is very bouncy, it's also very willing to be felted. So you've got lots of scope to keep stabbing and not really making any mistakes, because the wool sort of gives a little bit with each stab as well. And yeah, so you've got a chance to adjust the shape quite easily. Just keep stabbing. Stab, 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 stab. There's no other way to describe this. It always cracks me up when people avoid the word stabbing. There is no other motion. We have to use the word stabbing because that's what you do with a needle. You are not poking or anything like that. You are stabbing into the wool. So getting more of this wool felted down. And I can definitely feel the wire in there now. So it is really, really important that those the body and the head wool have been connected. At the moment, my nutcracker has got quite a broad bottom here, so I'm going to felt that down a little bit more and get that felted down. So when your shape looks like that, so it's a nice even sausage, the head will feel a little bit firmer, and you can fit it on here like that, and you can literally see the end here where it's meant to end, and you can see the end of the head here, and you can measure 6 centimeters across. Then you have accomplished that first state. So I'm going to just shorten him a little bit. He needs a little bit taking off the length, and I'm also going to make him a little bit slimmer. But I'm actually going to stab along the shape into him, because that firms him up just as well as though you're going straight into it. So just stabbing along the shape a little bit. And I'm just going to give him my measurements now. Let's see. How are we doing? Yeah, mine is about 7 centimeters. So ideally what I want to do is I want to get him a little bit shrink him down a little bit more around his overall width. Now, when we add wool color over the top, we're not actually building bulk, we're just adding surface coloring. And in the process of that, you have 2 options. You can just stab it into the surface if you have already made your shape really nice and slim, or you can add the wool and still work on the shaping of your overall shape. So you can still shrink it down whilst you're adding surface color. And I think I might actually do that. Now, just as a tip, these 2 wire lengths, they need to be the same length. You've still got the chance to ever so slightly adjust them now. So I would do this now. Because you can pull one wire out more than the other, and it will sort of just adjust itself around the head up here or the top. So you can still adjust these wire lengths if you just give one a slight tuck. So that's still possible. Okay, so let's see. We're going to next move on to the black wool. Now, the black wool has quite a lot of splitting taking place. So we've got a big bundle of black wool, and let's talk about that for a minute, because you're going to have to split your black wool into 4 equal parts, which means there are quarters. If you want to do this with scales, you can do that again, because the black wool is actually 15 grams. Now, 15 doesn't split exactly into 4, but it's roughly 8 grams each little pile. If you want to do that, just under 8, 7 point God knows what. So make 4 equal parts out of the black wool. Let's see, like that. I want to do it. Feel this. This is a little bit smaller. Take some of that. There we go. So 4 equal parts or thereabouts. And now you're going to take part 1 and part 2. And you're going to put this to one side. One is one boot, one is the other boot. You can label these. You can put a little label on there and or put them in a little bag and just say 1 boot to 2nd boot. Okay, 1st boot, 2nd boot. They're out of the equation. Now you've got the 3rd quarter. You're going to set this aside for the very end for finishing details. Okay, so we've got a boot, another boot, and 1 quarter for finishing details. And then we've got 1 quarter left. And from this, we take off a pinch. And that is for making lapels. I said lapels again. How embarrassing. Lapels here. Okay, so that is for lapels later. And then the rest, you take the 3 quarters, so that is take off a pinch for lapels, then take 3 quarters of the remaining wool and proceed with a hat. Okay, so we've got lapels, and now we're taking off a quarter of this, and we put that to one side as well. Okay, do you need me to explain this again? All of the black wool into quarters. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 quarter for boots and another quarter for boots. So the half of it is gone for boots. 1 quarter you set aside because that is going to be for finishing details and accessories later. And what you can see here now is the 4th quarter. I've taken off a pinch for the lapels, and then I've now split off 1/4 of this one, and I'm proceeding with my 3/4, having set aside wool for lapels and 1/4 here. Okay, this quarter here, or this 3/4 of the quarter, less the lapels, we're going to use to wrap around the top part to make the hat. And we don't want to add bulk, so we're going to do this relatively thin but still with an even cover, and begin covering the top part. So the top part, you know exactly how big the top part is because you've got your template at the back. The template at the back is really important. You will refer to this a lot over the next few steps, because that is sort of literally gives you so much information in terms of where to put it. But it is about 5 to 6 centimeters from the top down. That's the idea. So 5 to 6 centimeters is roughly where I am here. That's 6 centimeters. So that's sort of my line that I'm going to follow. But remember, you've got the template. So if you're not sure, use the template. And you have got also tape measures on the left-hand side of every set of instructions of ours. If you didn't know that, then there you have it. And we want to cover that, but we don't want to build bulk. We want to cover it. So we want to make sure that we get a nice, neat cover going. And obviously we need to cover the top of the hat as well. So let's get that felted down. I'm going to just have one of these here in the picture so you can see where we're working at. We're working at this part now to get the hat felted down. Remember, there's wire inside. So try not to stab into that. It's definitely worth felting this down really well. I actually really like working with the Clover 5 needle felting tool. It's really nice to felt things down if you're just trying to cover the surface. I really like working with that. Right. So notice that I'm taking small quantities. I'm not piling it on. I've got way more control by using smaller quantities and just applying them where they need to go rather than piling it on. And then you find that you've run out of black wool because you've put it in places where it isn't needed. And then you don't have it for the places where it is needed. Now I do need to cover all of that top of my nutcracker yet. Here, this part here at the top. So I want to make sure I've got enough to do that with. I'm not getting there. Felting that down nicely. And so the 1/4 that you split off the black just now, we're going to use that to make the peak of the hat. But we're just felting the edge of the hat nice and neat. And we're not going to do that just yet because it gets in the way. So we're just felting the black wool down to get that nice and neatened out. And the top of the hat is sort of ever so slightly rounded. It's not entirely flat, but it's slightly rounded. I do remember when I was a child and I grew up with nutcrackers, as they are quite a German tradition, I was always slightly scared of them. They always had slightly scary faces. And I don't actually ever remember using it to crack nuts, I will be honest. But I'm sure that's exactly what they were meant to do. So just not in my house. And of course, in German, they're called Nussknacker. And I did wonder earlier whether the word knacker, which in English you say knacker, Whether that has something to do with being knackered, I don't know. I wonder, because it might be quite, you know, like maybe you're knacked like a nut. You're crushed like a nut when you're knackered. Interesting. I meant to look that up, but I forgot. Right, hat on. Now I want to see where my template is, just so I can compare it. So that's the hat. That's not bad. Not bad at all. That's pretty much the line where it needs to be. And I'm going to now start with the next color. As I said, I've actually have a little bit left over of the black, but I can use that maybe later. And now we're going on to step 11, where we're going to split our pink wool. And we want to split half of the pink wool and wrap strands around the area below the black at approximately 4 centimeters wide. So from here to there, about 4 centimeters, and that makes the that will make the face. But we need to just split this in half first. Split off half of your pink wool, because we're going to need the other half for other parts later. Now I'm actually going to go all the way around with this one. Seems a nice strand of wool. Try something new. And I'm going all the way around with that whole strand, felting it down. It just lent itself to do that. And what we want to do is we want to have ever such a slight rounded face. So I'm just getting the edges stuck down neatly. And down here as well. I'm going to compare this to my template in a minute. And now I'm going to felt this part down because it's not felted at all yet. So I cut down a little bit with my silver needle felting tool. I think the danger is that you stab into it so hard that you make indentations. So it's better to work really concentrate on working all the way around. So to make a nice, neat finish, so you don't have any bits sticking up. And at some point you will have to decide what is the front and the back of your nutcracker as well. So maybe definitely use the area that's nice and firmly and evenly felted for the front, for the face. A lot of the back is obviously going to be covered. In fact, most of it will be covered with the hair. So you can already make a decision which way you want your nutcracker to face. I think this is the nicer part. Yeah, definitely. So felt into these edges, keep felting into them and try and keep that shape slightly rounded. And of course, compare it to your template. There we go. So the head could come up a little bit. So I'm going to felt in there a little bit more. Bring it up a bit so we don't have a too short a body, because this is it. We have just that body length and nothing else. So we want to make sure we're sticking to the measurements. Oh, that was definitely an ever such slight bend in my needle. Getting into the wire there. So keep stabbing into that pink wool. And getting there. I can feel it firming up now. And I am still working with my coarse felting needle. And felting that down nicely. Now, when you do this at home, you don't need to work at my speed. You can take your time. I'm not saying that I cut corners, but I think I could probably always felt this a little bit more carefully and thoroughly. So it's actually not too bad. Okay, right. That's that part done. So that is the black and the pink on. And now I'm going to go to the red. Now the portioning of the red wool, this keeps going on. So remember to keep your black nice and separate. The portioning of the red wool is that you are going to split your red wool into 3 equal parts. 1, 2, 3. So if you want to weigh this again, I can tell you how that works, because you have got 18 grams of poppy red, and divided by 3, that means you have 6 grams of poppy red on each 1/3 portion. And the first and the second you put to one side, because that is for the left and the right arm. So you could actually put them to the one boot and the other boot, so you know that's one, that's the other. And then the third third, you split it in half, and you put one of the halves to one side for the coat tails later. So we want to make sure that there is enough that's about half and half. And that gets, I'm going to put that with the black wool that is later for the finishing details and the lapels and the peak of the hat. So you put the one of the halves to one side, I've done that, and then you take the other half and proceed as follows. So you wrap the wool around the part below the face and head in the same way as you've done with the other 2 parts. And this time you will have to cover about 7 centimeters along, leaving just 3 centimeters of the white core wool. So let's see whether we've done this right. I might have to push my white wool up a little bit, but I've always said that from the beginning. So I wanted 7 centimeters, which is roughly from here to there. There's definitely more than 3 centimeters left. So I'm going to, in a minute, I'm going to just felt that white wool up a little bit. But I just need to, I'm going to use the whole strand again, because that seemed to have worked last time. Now I'm going to close it up at the back of my nutcracker, because then I know that the front is nice and neat. Okay, so I'm going to close it up at the back. Let's get that felted down. If your wool is bitty, you can do this in smaller portions like we did with the hat. You don't have to do this all in one go. And then just get this felted down. 7 centimeters along, and you still want to keep that really nice and away from the flesh pink head part. So make sure that you don't suddenly start spilling into it. You want to have a nice crisp edge there. So I'm just getting the edges down, and then I'm going to felt the rest down like I've done with all the others. And using my coarse needle still. Lots of stabbing. I think after the vintage teddy bear, the jointed teddy bear, nothing seems like a lot of stabbing anymore. That was definitely the ultimate project, to get things felted down so solidly. Everything else seems to be less hard work. So let's just focus here on the front a bit. I do need to get this nice and neat all around, because you see lots of that. You see that at the back. This is the part you see at the back, and this part is separate. So we'll get that done, felted down properly in a minute. Let's just get this felted down first. It's my front. And I'm going to just have a little go with this. Definitely like that 5 needle felting tool. I like it when you're trying to cover surface wool onto your project. It literally just attaches it to the surface. It doesn't do a lot of needle felting into the core, because the needles only come out that far. So, you know, wherever you stab that, that's not gonna go very deep, but it is a really good way to get the wool fastened on without making huge holes or dents into it. And now I'm going to neaten this edge out. So I've got a bit of a dip here on the back of my edge, and I'm going to I'm actually going to pinch a little bit of the set aside red wool to fill that in, just to neaten it out. I'm going to measure my pink wool again, because pink, there's no pink, my red, to make sure that it's 7 centimeters. So I've slightly shrunk that back. So I need to just go down again a little bit more. And this is definitely more than 3, but I'm planning to push that up because I haven't got much room here for my legs, and they should be protruding a little bit more. So now let's have a look here. That's the front. The front is bang on 7 centimeters exactly, but it's going down to 6 here at the back. So I'm pinching a little bit of red wool. I'm sure it'll be fine. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to fold it so that I've got a nice neat edge. I just felt that down to extend his red a little bit at the back. You may not have to do that, but that if you end up in the same situation that I was in, just take a little bit from your stash. I'm sure it'll be fine. I haven't taken it from the arm stash because I want to make sure that the two stashes I've put away for the arm will actually be the same. I don't want him to have one smaller or one larger arm. So I've definitely not taken it from there. And getting that felted down. And now I do want to shrink this white wool. I need to shrink it to about here to have that at 3 centimeters. So I'm going to use my slightly more stubby tool here, and I'm going to shrink that back a little bit quicker. But I'm only I will need to go over this with my single needle because it doesn't feel like I have much control over that. So let's just stab into it and shrink that back a little bit more. There's a lot there. It's very soft and squidgy, so I can definitely get rid of that a little bit. I think my nutcracker will be quite a pear shape. It will have quite a plump bottom unless I get that felted down quite quickly now. Let's try 2 needles. Let it down. Okay. Lots of stabbing, but nothing what we did with the vintage bear. So that's what I keep reminding myself. It is a lot, but not as much as we have done. Make sure you keep these legs that they are apart, because you don't want them to, you don't want his knees knocking together. So we do want to make sure that he's got these 2 legs, that there's a gap in between. So you might have to just pull them a little bit, like I just had to, so that they don't get pushed together as you're needle felting around the edges. So make sure those wires stay apart. And in a minute, I've got to cover all of this with black. So I make sure that when I do cover it with black, I felt a little bit deeper to continue shaping so that it is not so wide. I only want it to be 3 centimeters wide, and that it is not. Okay, let's see. Yeah, I'm still a little bit off. So the wool is definitely getting nice and firm now. And shrinking it down from his legs. nearly there, nearly there. I don't want to work with any other like really strong multi-tool, because I feel like I tell you what I could use, and is my beautiful wood turned U tree tool, but I haven't got it with me here. So I could probably use that, because that has got the needles spaced out exactly in the right direction. So if you have got one of those, then you might want to try it, but just make sure that you don't stab into the wire with them. But I think that one would work. Any other tools that I'm just thinking, they have the needles too close together, and that would probably not work right now. I must remember to bring that tool home so I can use it when I'm actually doing most of my needle felting. Okay, right, I'm going to leave that, and I'm going to add the this is I've chosen, this is the front. I'm going to add now the black base. So now just let me just recap this. From your third quarter of the black wool, take small pinches. Okay, you're not taking this from the fourth quarter, you're taking this from your third quarter, and just reminding you, the third quarter was not the boots, but it was the one that you set aside for, well, I want to say finishing touches. So it's not the lapel wool, and it's not the bit you took off your fourth quarter. It is actually, where's that page gone now? It is, bear with me, there. The third quarter is set aside for finishing details and accessories later. So it is actually the whole third quarter that I'm taking now wool off for the bottom part. So I've just taken a little bit off, and I'll see how I go with that. Because I need to cover the base as well, I see how I get. Where's my front there? So I want to make sure, now that I've decided where the front is, I'm going to make sure that I have the front part always looking really nice. Saying that, the black will pretty much be covered with the coat tails anyway. So I don't think you need to worry too much if the black isn't the best looking part on your nutcracker. And yeah, just get it felted down. Nice and neat. And I'm using 2 needles because I'm not just adding the surface color, I'm actually felting into the shape, because that is the one that still needs to be shrunk down a little bit on my nutcracker at least. So it's getting worked a little bit harder than I have done the other parts. But you may not have to do that. It depends how you did the basic shape. I seem to have got a little bit more, he's a bit bottom heavy, my nutcracker. But I am making this line really nice and distinct. And I'm going to have to cover all of the underneath of that part as well. We don't want any white visible now. All of the white is gone by the time we finished with that black covering. So all of the white core wool is now, or will be, gone. So a little bit more of that from that stash. I'll work my way around the wire here. Let it down. Oh, oh dear. Literally dropped out both my needles into my lap. And in the process of picking it up, I poked it in my thumb, but it's okay. I'm not bleeding. You just know it. It's just that little sharp pinch of the needle that we know so well. You think that needle is your friend, comes and bites you. Okay. Nearly there. Okay, last bit. And I need a tiny bit more from that stash, and then that part is also complete. And I am still working really hard into that base, because that is definitely the bulkier part on mine, on my shape. Make sure the legs are not too close together, but also making sure that they're in the middle. And even now, you can still pull on one of the legs a little bit if need be. Okay. Right, last bit here. And then we can move on to the next bit. Now, if you have to catch up on any of this, don't worry. There's plenty of time before part 2. So don't rush any of this. Work on it at your own pace. And of course, if you want to work ahead, feel free to do that too, because you should have the instructions to make along with this project. Right, I think I'm gonna call this done. Yeah, this is good. Like, let's have a look at the template, because that's the all-important template. My nutcracker has definitely got longer trousers. So I feel like I probably should still be working a little bit more on his base, but it is really marginal. And so it's probably also because the wool is, I can feel you can slip the wool up and down. So it's literally a case of stabbing it in to the base a little bit more so that it doesn't slide along the wire so much. But he feels really sturdy, and I actually really like his shape. He's a little bit more voluptuous, I want to say, than probably a skinny nutcracker. But I really am actually really quite happy with his shaping. Now, when I look at him, I do want to felt into some of these areas just to neaten them up a little bit. But I think the roundness of it has worked quite well. Having these almost these like sort of rolled rounds here, because that is the only shaping that we are able to do on him. So we might as well have these areas nice and distinct. So yes, definitely. He's definitely a little bit, I want to say he's definitely going to be a little bit, maybe not much bigger, but a little bit wider than this first model here. Okay, so we said we would get to as far as the peak and potentially the nose. So the peak is quite, let's just go to the big camera so you can see my, get an idea. This is what he looks like. Everybody will know this is a nutcracker, right? This is what I'm aiming for. So you can definitely see where we're heading with this. The hat is probably the most common thing you can recognize at the moment. So I'm going to make the peak of the hat now, and by now you definitely have to decide what is the front of your nutcracker and what is the back. And as I always say with needle felting, if you are as far as this, you can still then neaten him out a lot more, because you could go down to a medium needle now and completely smooth his cover over a little bit. But for the peak, I'm going to change to the overhead camera again, because we're going to the peak now. The peak, you need to use the remaining wool of the 4th quarter set aside from the hat portion in step 7. And so that was the 1/4 that we put aside. It wasn't the wisp that we pulled off, because that was for the lapel. So take the 1/4, and this is actually quite a lot. So I don't know if I need that much. I'm going to just use a little bit less for now. If I need to add more, I will. And then you're going to shape that into a flat semicircle with your hands about 7 centimeters long and 4 centimeters wide. So a semicircle, that's the flat bit, I want to say. And then you need it to be 7 centimeters long. That's about it. And 4 centimeters wide. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to use the felting needle. I'm going to felt that peak into there. And this is a semicircle. So I've already formed it into a semicircle as best as I could with my hands, but now I'm going to felt a line in here, and you can't probably see that very well, but I'm literally doing this up the other way around. Let's turn it around so it looks more like the picture. So I'm going to felt a semicircle, just a line into there. And then I'm going to fold the bits that are on the outside of that line on the inside. So all of this at the moment is fastened onto my felting mat. Some white fibers in there that I don't want. Just give it a few stabs all around. And the next thing is you're going to have to take this off your mat before it felts on too much. So I'm not going to straighten out these bits too much because I do want some wispy bits there. But I am going to neaten out that rounded part because that's going to be the bit that forms his peak. The straight part will attach to his hat. And the bit that I'm felting right now will have to be nice and neat. And I'm going to get that felted down really, really nice and solid and smooth so that it sticks out at the front and doesn't flop down. And I'm going to do that from both sides. Of course, to get the edges really neat, you could use our edging tool. If you are not familiar with it, it is actually a really simple contraption. If only I could find it. I had it just a minute ago there. So the edging tool, it means you have 2 see-through squares, and then you can felt. I'm going to use a medium needle for this because I don't want to felt it down too much. And you go in to get the edge nice and neat. So you can see where it's shrinking, but at the same time you can work on a really small edge without stabbing yourself, and it does make a huge difference. This is now needle felted, and this one is still raw. So I'm going to work my way along that edge, and you can see exactly where your needle is going, and makes a huge difference to neaten out edges. Hence, it's called edging tool. Well, we called it that anyway. And working my way around that side as well. And you can squeeze it nice and tight, and that sort of helps with the felting as well. Just make sure you go between the two. It's very satisfying because you can sort of see the needle going in and working your way around. You can buy these on our website if you wondered where they are. Ow, that was my finger. And that is a really lovely, neat edge. Look at that. Really proud of that. Right, so now you're going to have to attach that to your Nutcracker's hat. Remember where the front of your that's quite good, actually. Quite happy with that. Place the peak onto the baseline of the hat and felt a straight line along the peak to detach. So onto the baseline. So I'm not spreading out these wispy fibers. I am literally just stabbing into the edge so that it is on the baseline of the hat. Of the hat. So on the edge of the hat, basically. Get that fastened on. So the underneath is really neat. There are no wispy bits on the underneath of the hat. they're all sticking out in the hat, but that's okay because that can be just felted down and felted away now. So you can shorten that hat by just going along it a little bit. Mine is quite big. I didn't use the template on the back of the instructions, but you can make it slightly shorter by keep stabbing along it and stab more of it into the hat. And that makes it slightly shorter there. If you're not happy with it, pull it off. Start again. That's the other option. Always is. So make sure it is exactly in the place where you want it to be, because obviously this is it. I'm going to use my horse needle, get a bit more grip to felt it a little bit shorter still. But it sticks out nice and firm, so that's good. Tuck that away a little bit so it's higher up. We do want it to be a peak, so there, that looks a bit better. Okay, so that's the peak, and of course, as always, you will find yourself stubbing all around the rest of your shape once you start messing with one bit. You mess with other bits as well. Make that a little bit less broad. All of your nutcrackers will be completely different as well. You are aware of that, obviously. Okay, so that's a lot smaller now. That's better. There we go. That's how mine is now. And I think we will just have time to get the nose on him. It is really, really easy. And then for next time, I'm going to show you how to do the eyes and finish the face off, which is going to be fun because then you've already got a little face looking at you. So this is how far we've got with a nutcracker. This is where we're getting to, but there's plenty of time to get that, to get there yet. So for the nose, you take a small pinch of the pink wool and flatten into a 3 by 5 centimeter sheet. Now this is, I've only got half of the pink left, so this is for the nose and the arms. So it's about 5 by 3 centimeters. It's a little bit longer and a tiny little bit wider, but there's something in there. Let's take that out. A little bit of black. And you wind this into a sausage shape from the long end towards the opposite end. So I do want to make sure it is 5 centimeters in that case, because I'm winding it along the long end. Yeah. So I'm going like this. And then I'm going to wind into the sausage from the long end and towards the opposite end. Just want to stab it down a little bit. So an almighty big nose this is, but we will shorten it. Just stab it down a little bit just so that it holds its shape. And then you're going to attach it right into the center of the, underneath the peak. So you really want to go right in there. Get that felted down. Get these wispy bits felted down into the area right under the peak. So it's almost like his hat sitting on top of his nose. And then you want to get that end felted down here by tucking these under. Yeah. So it shrinks down a lot, the nose, needless to say. And you're just felting that on all around. Don't worry if it looks like you've just felted the nose on. That's what we're doing. Because we're going to but we're going to add little bits of wool onto the joins in a minute so that it doesn't look quite so felted on. And then you can sort of felt into the nose a little bit as well. Felt into the peak of the hat as well, because that nose has definitely pushed that up a bit. So just shape the nose a little bit. You do want him to have a nice big nose. And then I'm going to use little bits of the pink wool, just tiny wisps, just to lay them over his nose and felt it down so that the joint looks a little bit softer. And I'm using my medium needle now to do this. And I think I'm going to leave it as that because we are working on the nose a little bit more later on. But he's got a nose. If nothing else, he's got a nose. And then we're going to work on the face in part 2. Right, that's my nutcracker so far. He's got his hat, he's got his head, he's got his red body, he's got his black top of the pants. His legs are sticking out here at the bottom, and I now need to for the next time I need to make his face. That's what we're doing. So we will pick up next time. We'll pick up on page 4, work our way all the way to 4, 5, and what are we going to do? So we are going to do nose. We've done the nose, eyes, mustache, mouth, coat, tails, and arms, and we make one of the arms definitely during the tutorial. Plus I managed 2, and then in the third part we're attaching the arms and we're attaching the legs. And what will happen is that there will be a separate small tutorial to help you all with your embroidery stitches. If you're not familiar with embroidery stitches, I will do a little tutorial to teach you some of the stitches, namely the chain stitch, the loop stitch, the long stitch, the cross stitch, and that will help you with the final embroidery on the nutcracker, which is actually probably the most important part to finish him off. But it will be quite painstakingly boring to watch me do all the stitching. So I thought if I show you how to stitch the stitches, then you can see me do it on him, but you can make yourself familiar with the stitches and then finish him off at the very end. That's not the very end, because we need to get the stitching done before we give him his beard and his hair, because that will kind of get in the way unless we do the stitching first. Right, that's all part 1 today, and got as far as this. So hopefully you see you all next time with a nutcracker that looks a little bit like this, and or it could be completely different. It's your nutcracker, you're in charge, so you can make him look however you want to. I'll see you next time.